So let's start. Let's jump to it. So first, welcome everyone to this webinar about digital transformation strategies for credit union in a data-driven world. It's our very reality for everyone on the line in this new world. So today, our goal is to share best practices of what we've seen out there with working with other credit unions. But first, let's present ourselves. So I'm Sebastian. I'm the founder of a company called Solutions Metrix. We operate in the credit union space for 5-6 years now, working with a lot of your peers. I have the pleasure to co-host with my colleague, Tyler Schneider. Hi, Tyler.
Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. I don't remember what day it was. Thanks for the opportunity to present here, and a quick intro on my side. I lead our sales and partnerships efforts at Arkatechture. We're a data consulting firm in QSO, and prior to joining Arkatechture, I helped drive digital transformation across a number of different industries at Tableau and Salesforce. So today's topic is near and dear to my heart, and excited about the opportunity to share with everybody.
Excellent, perfect. So quick intro about Solutions Metrix. So Solutions Metrix is two things. It's a business consulting firm. So we help when it's about strategic roadmap, best practices, change management, user adoption, project governance, and we also have the technology expertise. Everything around front office, so we're CRM guys, so member relationship management is our forte. When we talk about workflow automation, system integration, no-code enablement, as well as app development. We work, like I mentioned a little earlier, with many of your colleagues and other member of the community, being ESL, General, Electric Credit Union, and many others. So today we'll talk about some of the use cases we're seeing and working with them in this data-driven world.
And just a little bit about Arkatechture. We're a data consulting firm. We've been around for nearly 13 years now. Started out working across all industries, retail, financial services, healthcare, and life sciences. And about 6 or 7 years ago, we started working with St. Mary's Bank up in the top right corner, the nation's first credit union. And we helped them solve a couple of challenges around moving from one core to another, from one old Jack Henry product to Jack Henry Scimitar. And in working with them, we created some of the fundamental pieces of our platform, Arkelytics, which is a data warehousing and analytics platform for credit unions and community banks. We formed a QSO 2.5 years ago with 4 credit union investors, and we've been working in the space now for quite some time. So we're really excited about where our partnerships and ecosystem is going, and working with Solutions Metrix, who's having us here today, is a critical piece of that.
Excellent, thank you, Tyler. So why CRM and data?
And I can kick us off on this, Seb. And so you're looking at a couple of different numbers here, and these numbers are reflective of why you all signed up for this webinar today. And that 70% represents the number of CRM projects that fail to meet expected outcomes. And one of the primary drivers for that is going to be a gap in the data that's presented in the CRM. That 15 million is Gartner's response to the impact of data quality on driving loss in revenue at organizations. And that 60% is, Gartner also found that 60% of those surveyed did not even know what the financial impact was of their bad data quality. And so there's a great opportunity here to start taking your steps towards understanding data and how it can be impactful for other technology platforms, and how it can be instrumental in making a CRM successful at your credit union.
And this is so true. So and our point of view is the same: is data plus CRM equal a successful digital transformation. Those two components are the pillars that you need to build on in order to reach your overarching goals of credit union. And we're going to talk about it today in details about this famous Member 360. So what it means is to have better member experience as you build a complete profile from all the systems. So this golden record of your member, you're gonna increase the member experience. You're also gonna make sure that you reach the operational efficiencies that you're looking for when doing a CRM and a data project. Meaning we don't have we will have still point solutions, but by the fact that they're unified in terms of data, there's a lot of automations and workflow that we do to make sure you are more efficient. And as well, sustainable growth, meaning cross-sell, upsell, opportunities, and ability to deploy some initiatives within your credit union without being that much complex, by the fact that you have a CRM and a data platform being combined together. And this will lead us to the first section of this webinar, just the basics, understanding the basic. We don't want this webinar to be too much technical. We're gonna, on the surface, speak about some technical concept, but this is meant to be for what are the business outcomes of having a CRM and a good data. So first, the data collection, right? So having all this data to build your member profile and all those point solutions, the online system, online banking, the card system, the LOS, for sure, the core banking system. So all those point solutions that you're using both for retail or commercial, you include them in the in your data project. And as well, all those platforms has in some way a data integration capability. So we really build this unified database in order to reach this member 360 and the complete profile. For sure, we're going to talk about data analytics. So the ability to really observe the data, make decisions that are data driven as well. And when you have all those data, you can really define the persona that you already defined, really make sure that when you're communicating and engaging with your member, they fall within the right category of engagement they need. And that personalized experience is, okay, I know exactly where in the journey the member is. So when I engage with that member, I know exactly where he is, and it's more relevant and more personalized. So all of that to increase the member experience, being it for recommendations. So when you speak with your member, there's some automation that are there. What's next best offer? What should be the next step with this member? Proactive support as well. So if you can see by their behaviors where they are and if they're facing an issue, so you can actually be proactive with your member. And all of it from, we talk about marketing as well, so campaign effectiveness and the ability to really, as your digital engagement is going, see what is the response of those members. And one of our goals is some of our credit unions partners, we want to replicate the digital experience or replicate the experience you have in branch in a digital manner. And in order to do that, you need all the data points. You need all this data being in a structured way where you can have really a digital experience. And as well, Gen Y, Gen Z, less inclined to go to a branch sometime, and maybe for some exceptions. So that's really an important pillar we're working on, is to say, okay, by building this, we want to replicate the branch experience in a digital way to make sure that we can continue the relationship with as well the newer generation. So that's something we're working on. And for sure, the operational efficiency, we talked about it, but there's many cross-departmental workflows that will work in silo if you don't have this global and unified vision of where the data resides as well where the workflow is. So we'll see a little more of that today, but those are the premises, those are the basics of why you need the CRM and the data to be unified together. And if I just continue, and I'll let Tyler explain about the data analysis, but the CRM turning the strategy into an action. So as you have those data, if there's actions that need to be taken. So an example is someone stopped using a product of yours, right? We talk about dormancy member, for example. We need to put it in action, and that's the CRM. The CRM is the tactical way to action, create tasks, create emails, create phone calls, create chat, to make sure it's going to be addressed. So it's really turning into strategy, into actions to make sure on the day-to-day, the things are done in order to correct the situation.
And then powering those actions are the insights. And so stitching together your data from disparate systems and defining the single source of truth. So you have, on average, in the contact center, I would imagine 5 to 7 different systems that teams and people move through to go and understand the scope of a relationship with a member. Now, if you could streamline that and then put out what that contact center employee should be talking about to a member into the CRM, you're going to immensely increase their efficiency. And you're also going to create this proactive approach that's going to replicate that branch experience that Seb was just talking about. But it's also going to be something that you can then pull back into the data warehouse and track, and then go and create and get insights into that elusive, hey, return on the investment of these technologies that we're using, the campaigns that we're running, and the products that we're offering to these members. And Seb, if you could go to the next slide for me, please. I think that this really highlights why we're talking here today. Is at Arkatechture, one of our big focuses in the last 18 months and into the next 2 or 3 years has been this concept of the data hub. And you're going to invest as a credit union a lot of time and energy and resources into taking disparate data and building that source of truth. And if you want to drive adoption in the credit union and not have people revert back to the old way of manually pulling a report from the core, or going and acting on their gut, or being a gunslinger as a member facing representative, then it's really imperative that you're taking this data that you're blessing and saying, this is accurate, this is the right number, the right calculation, the right definition, and you're leveraging that with all of the other financial technologies that you have in the credit union. And so when we think about the relationship that we have with Solutions Metrix, and through that their CRM partners, it's taking that data and exposing it and making it easily available to go and make decisions off of. And if you go to the next slide, Seb, I think that starts to illustrate some of the points that we have around improving member engagement. And there's great opportunities to enhance the communication that you're having with members by leveraging systems like the CRM to automate those tasks and those conversations that you're having. Have that repository that's writing back directly to the core so that you have that running information about the conversations that you're having. And then also making sure that you have visibility into, hey, there wasn't an opportunity here right now, but there is going to be an opportunity in 6 months because they said they were going to buy a car. That CRM becomes that repository for it. And then you pull that data from the CRM, push it back to the warehouse, and now you start to create that whole view of the member. And if you go to the next slide for me, what we then look at is we have some tools that we've built that are going to make it really easy to proactively surface insights about members and the relationships that they have. And so we created these workbenches, and I talked about working with St. Mary's Bank many years ago to help them do a core conversion. And one of the things that we did was we realized that they had a ton of tech debt on their core. They had thousands of reports that people were asking questions and using once and then never looking at again, but were hesitant to delete. And we said, there's a better way. Let's use a modern BI tool and create a workbench that has every piece of information that you need about a member here that you can easily digest and create a self-service report. And so you can see a couple of example questions here, but hey, how many members of this specific segment did we add in Q1, and how does that compare? Well, what we then do from here with integration to the CRM is it's a one-click export and then go and upload to the CRM so that you can go and use that information of, hey, all these people that we added, let's go enroll them in an educational workflow, right? Or, hey, all these members that have at least 10,000 in deposits, let's go and look at them in the CRM and then see what other things should we go and talk to them about? How do we go and educate or create a cross-sell or upsell opportunity for our MSRs and for our retail teams and so on and so forth? Another really good example of leveraging these analytics to continue to move forward, Seb, if you could go to the next slide, please, is creating cross-sell opportunities. And what we've done here is we've made it really easy for credit union employees to be able to go and say, I want to look at everybody that has a loan product with us but doesn't have a card product with us. And what you're doing is you're creating these targeted lists, and then you're using filters to say, and help me identify people in a certain age group. Help me identify people that have been with the credit union for a certain period of time. People that live in a certain geographic area that we want to go focus on. Oh, and let's exclude people that are business accounts with us, or let's exclude X, Y, and Z type of individual. And again, the goal is start really high and then find the ability to go and drill through and create that action in the CRM. And that's where I'll kick it over to Seb to talk a little bit more about personalized services and what you do once you have that identified cohort of people that you want to talk about.
That is correct. It's a great example. So I love the last one, which is member that have an indirect auto loan but no shared account. So this is where it's a great example of I have the data to be able to identify those personas or those individuals. Now I'm going to use CRM to create a campaign. Could be email, could be a phone campaign, could be when they come to the branch or they engage with us online, we're going to have this dialogue so we can engage with them. So that's a very excellent example. And this is just another in the theme of personalized services. So understanding the member preferences, because you do have the data, and what is the behavior analysis. So that's a good example as well. The customized customizations, right? So it's not only I'm shouting in a megaphone way, but is I'm listening and I'm engaging with them. So that's a big difference. The targeted marketing campaign. So for sure, imagine all the segmentations that you can do when you have all those data points. And the member experience, it's enhanced by nature. And when we talk about dormancy, for example, this is where and we can prevent dormancy. This is where we increase the engagement and the loyalty of the member, and from generations to generation as well. Most of the credit union do already have the information on who's the kids and who's the next generation of my depositors, who could be at a certain age, respectable age. How do we make sure we engage with the next generation, right? There's $7 trillion that will change generation within 10 years. How do we make sure we have continuity? So those are the type of initiatives that we support you with by having CRM and data. And in service delivery as well, we have, when the member call, I don't have to go in 25 different systems to have this profile. I have it there. So the responsiveness is affected, as well as the personalization, and the engine can help me better support my member. And an example here, so that's an example of an indirect member management. So we can see, we try to we onboarded that person with for the auto loan as an example, and then we see, okay, they didn't engage that much. They only paid for their auto loan. So we can do all sorts of promotions, and we'll get to that a little later in this presentation, what are all the promotions you can do, but you want to make sure they open an account, a shared account, and they engage with the credit union, not just for this auto loan. So indirect member management is a good example of where you can automate, create workflows, get the data, and really engage and personalize the communications. And as well, the key benefits of system integration, right? Process optimization, and not in a siloed way, right? We have this umbrella. So workflow, so a loan origination is a good example. So me, as an MRM, a member relationship management, I can receive a lead, or I can receive a notification there's an opportunity maybe, so I can work it out and send it to underwriting, get back to me, work with the LOS system that you have in place. So all this unified front being connected it optimizes the process. Routing tasks that are automated as well. We talked about the coordination and the communication within the department, so making sure there's no leakage in or inefficiencies, right? The worst thing is communicating all the time by email, and then you don't have the history. Someone calls me, I need to go through 2 years of history of email. That's not a good way to do it. There's better ways that exist right now. Resource management as well, being able to optimize, being a call center, the MRM, the branch, the teller, the branch manager have a better view of what's going on and what are the opportunity, the objective, what's the scorecard, what tactics are we going to put forward to make sure we achieve the objective. And the cost reduction as well. So for sure, all of us sees, okay, there's an initial investment that needs to be done for this, but with time, we've done it so often that the cost is now really reasonable. So that's why we're typically retrieve the ROI within a year. But all the operational efficiencies that you're getting pays for it, just for it, not counting all the upsells and cross-sell. Faster decision making with all the BI and intelligence and analytics that you have, and the predictive analytics as well. And for sure, enhanced customer service, right? The response time is better, and the consistency as well. So some of our credit union, they hire someone, take some time before they get acquainted with, 5, 10, 8 different systems. When you have the unified front of an integrated system, that's why we call it the engagement hub. It's more than just a typical CRM. An engagement hub, it's easier to operate as well.
And Seb, that's a great call out on onboarding. Somebody's really expensive, right? And when they make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes. It's totally understandable. But if you can mitigate that by creating a more streamlined way to say, hey, new employee, go focus your energy on this group of people, on these members, on this segment, on this problem, you really get more value out of your investment in those individuals and the investment in your technology faster. And so this is really critical, is to, yes, there is a cost to make this investment, but Seb also talked about recouping that cost from a time perspective and from a proactive motion perspective in a year. And that's what we typically see as well, is if you focus on the right inputs, you're going to get the right outputs out of it. And some of those things are all about focusing on the proactive motion.
Excellent. Thank you, Tyler. And we talk about some of and onboarding of new resources, a great example. This is a loan line cycle, just as an example. So you predefine all the steps and in workflow management, knowing that you have all the data points in order to do those different steps. So when we talk about automation, there's a new loan, a new opportunity, so the workflows are automatically triggered in a way where it moves forward. So in terms of training, in terms of visibility throughout all of the credit union, it simplifies it. So there's a lot of pre-built automation that there is. So if you dispute, for example, it's built in now. Right? Someone calls and we want to make sure. So all the steps and all the tasks and, okay, do we need to reimburse or not? Is there fraud? All of that is figured out. And we do have the data point from multiple systems to treat it. So it makes it so much more efficient. Again.
And on top of those areas that you just highlighted, there's a lot of other proactive motions that you can input by leveraging a data warehouse, right? The first one that we called out here was servicing data quality, and I like to use my experience as a credit union member. I've been a member of my credit union since I was born. Both my parents are members. I opened an account when I was 14, and I lived at home, and I got my first job, and I wanted to be able to deposit paychecks. Then I went to college, and I moved 10 hours away, and I applied for a line of credit so I could afford college and the life that I wanted to live. Then my wife and I moved close to home, but not quite home, and we wanted to get a mortgage. So we applied for a mortgage. Well, you know how the credit union still engages with me? They send letters to my mom's house. I haven't lived there for quite a long time. And there's a great opportunity to surface gaps in your data quality and create tasks and workflows for your front end staff to go and solve for those gaps. And I think about, again, my experience. I came into 3 different systems, the core, an LOS, and maybe another third party platform. I have different addresses in each one of those. How do they know what the right way is to engage with me? The second point here is identifying key indicators of behavior. And what we like to think about here is the economy is tough right now for a lot of your members, especially if you're a CDFI. You have people that are maybe we're getting direct deposit twice a month or 3 times a month, and now they're not. Well, if you can mine your data and grab a list of those individuals who stopped getting direct deposit for 3 months, you can proactively surface them, create a task in the CRM, and say, hey, let's reach out and offer a skip a pay, or let's offer a refinance and get them into a lower monthly payment, because our theory is that you might have lost your job. We saw you had money coming in and now you don't. The next one is that proactive motion, and we've kind of hammered this, but it's a great opportunity to, again, look at people that have money going out of the credit union, or maybe they've had notable declines in their deposit balances, whatever it may be. Taking a look at those and asking your retail teams and your lending teams, what are some of the things that you look for to be able to go and identify the right person to talk to? And you can use those to drive action, insight to action. You'll get tired of me saying that today, but it's really important to think about that. And then the last piece here is segmentation at scale. So you have all of this data and you can create different cohorts of individuals, and you can say, hey, these are my loyal members. These are people that do X, Y, and Z with the credit union. They have good cross sell. They do a lot of transactions. They don't have a lot of money leaving. Well, I'm going to talk to them very differently than I talk to somebody that came in via an indirect channel and only has an indirect auto loan with us. So how do you take those segments that you have and can create, import them into the CRM? And then if you think about that personalization layer that Seb talked about in the engagement hub, how do you use that to create the right workflow to engage with the right member at the right time? That's really what we're trying to be focused on as we go to market with the Solution Metrics team. And Seb, if you want to go to the next slide, I can start talking about how we try to solve some of these problems and share a real life customer story. And so what we think about is there's a lot of problems. The primary one that all of you can feel, even if you have a data warehouse today, even if you have a CRM today, is data silos, right? Your data does not talk from one system to another. And if it does talk in some systems, it doesn't talk across your entire ecosystem. You're using 30 to 40 different systems, and that can be really challenging because somebody at the credit union cares about data that's over there that they can't get to today to tie into all of the other data that they have to make decisions. Another really big challenge that we're seeing is regulatory compliance. Ever-changing landscape there. I don't want to be a doomsayer here, but I mean, legislation coming around fees, some of the lawsuits that are coming out of the community banks and targeting credit unions for their nonprofit status. If you have all of your data stitched together, you also create that chain of how are we engaging with our members? Are we doing things above board? And should an auditor or regulator come to you, you have a really good repository to be able to say, hey, this is exactly what we're doing on the front end with the CRM, pulling that data back into the data warehouse, and here's how everything comes together. Same goes for CECL reporting and even automating reporting around your board reporting or whatnot. And then the last one I would call out here is operational efficiency. And this is one that is a really low hanging fruit that both a data warehouse and a CRM platform solve for is go ask your team how much time they spend on that report or creating a campaign or doing an outbound approach around maturing CDs. It's hours. They don't have to do that anymore. The technology exists that those can be clicks, right? There might be a little work on the front end, but they can be clicks. And Sebastian, I think that leads to a good question that I want to ask you before I go into a customer story, which is, what are some of the biggest challenges that your credit unions are facing when they want to activate data within a CRM?
For sure. What's always a challenge is how do we gonna tackle the consolidation for the member 360 and building that member profile to be able to deliver extraordinary member experience? That's always the challenge.
Yeah. And the members, they know that you have this data, right? They know that you know their age, the demographic that they're in because they check that box on the loan application. They see you pull their credit score when they get a notification on their email or their app. They know that you know where they live and their family and how they spend money. And they expect you to use that. And that's where the disconnect is between a lot of not data-driven credit unions and the member is they know you have it and they want you to use it. And if you hit the next slide, what they expect you to do is they expect you to be able to proactively recommend products, to proactively understand their challenges, to notify them of things that are relevant to them. I think about my experience in social media, and I don't spend a lot of time on it, but I opt into ads because if you're going to serve me ads, I'd rather it be tailored to me. And I think that a lot of the younger generations feel the same way, where, hey, if I'm engaging with you and I'm keeping my money with you and I have a CD and I have this other product, notify me about the HELOC when you can see them going to Lowe's or Home Depot all the time. And let me know that there's an opportunity to be there to support me. And what that allows for you to do, if you'll hit the next slide, please, is that creates a really good opportunity to look at your members in two different ways. To look at them from that macro level and understand your membership as a whole. Who do you engage with? Where do they live? And then understanding who's joining the credit union. Are there some commonalities there on how you can streamline your process and how you talk to them and how you educate them? And then you can narrow the scope a little bit and say, hey, I want to look at a specific member and I want to understand what's bothering Sally. I want to understand what is the pain or thing that she's going through today, and how do I make sure that I'm there to support her? We had our customer summit a couple weeks ago. We had 25 credit unions get together, and the theme of it was getting back to your roots, engaging with the member and showing them that you care, because that's the big differentiator. And so if you look at this next slide, what we'll see is if you start out looking at the macro level, and I'm going to tell you a customer story about one of our customers, Tucson Federal Credit Union had a theory. They have about 60,000 members. They're 700 million in assets under management. And they said, you know what? We aren't engaging with everybody, and we want to know who is raising their hand to work with us. So they created some criteria as a leadership team, and they said, an engaged member is somebody that has logged on to online banking in the last 30 days. There's somebody that uses Zelle or direct deposit. They are doing X number of transactions a month, and so on and so forth. What they found was of those 60,000 members that they have, only about 40% of them were engaged. That's at a macro level. And they looked at it over time. How did that change? And they also looked at it across different criteria like segments and age. And then if you hit the next slide, they then drilled down and they said, okay, let's look at this engaged cohort, that 40% of our member base. Well, what are the products that they have? And what are the platforms that they're using to engage with us consistently? And how do I break them down even further? And what they said was, we want to run a targeted campaign. So they started to grab segments of these individuals, of those engaged members. And they used an outbound approach to go to them and say, hey, this was summer of 2023, so last summer. Said, hey, you either have money going out the door to another credit card, or you have a credit card with us and you aren't using it. We have a better rate than what you are doing today. And we bet that you, Mrs. Engaged Member, would benefit from that. And so they went outbound, very targeted. And if you'll hit the next slide, Seb, they had pretty great results on a very simple campaign to run and automate. And they saw almost a doubling in their open rate of that email that went out to that targeted cohort. It created 28 applications and 9 new credit cards that were opened. And after the 12-month promotional period, they retain 70% of those balances. And that's driving a direct impact on those members. They save them hundreds of dollars by getting them to a better rate, a promotional card, making sure that the money or the people that were raising their hand by the right generation, by the right age group, were talked to at the right point. And that's what we're talking about, the insight to action. It's taking that information and making it really easy for your team to go outbound and then to regather results and be able to leverage that to inform future strategy. So hopefully that customer story resonates with you all. And if you have any questions, throw them in the chat and we're happy to address them as we continue to wrap up here. But the next section here, I'll turn over to Seb.
Thank you so much, Tyler. Very fascinating, very fascinating, and it's a great example of reflecting on your credit union. And yeah, I was reading a book about credit union, and they talked about, it was funny, when you now have those data points, they call it about the HIPPO decision-making process. And HIPPO stands for the highest paid person opinion. So if you now have the data, this is I say it works, it doesn't work, but based on not really on data. So that's a really good example of leveraging the data. So using Zelle, log on in the last 30 days, as use their debit card or credit card, so forth and so on, and be able to say, okay, who's that segment? And then deep into that segment, be able to promote and be relevant and customer engagement. So that's a really good example, really good example. Now we're gonna, I wanna leave some time for questions toward the end. So I'll go for a few minutes on this. It's the governance, right? Because it's very simple, but it's not magic either. How do you ensure, right? Because a question you might have is, I'm going to connect, and to Tyler's example earlier, many systems, and it could be that this individual and member has different addresses in five different addresses in five different systems. So we're going to talk about the governance and what are the key elements of effective data governance, and what are the different policies and procedure. You want to ensure you keep your data clean. And what is data stewardship, right? You need to have built-in system alerts if there's a gap in your data, and for sure we automate. So an example is, will USPS all the addresses to make sure they're clean, and then we have mechanism with social security number. If we see two addresses, we have workflows. Okay, we have two addresses for this member. Which one is the right one? So there's automation. When we talked about the operational efficiencies, that's an example on data stewardship. But there's some initiatives that we provide to make sure, and you need to have to make sure your data is clean. Compliance and security as well. There's some data where it's a little touchy to actually deep dive on. So platforms as the built-in, most of the platform has the built-in capabilities to make sure it's compliant and secured. And what is the best practice for a successful implementation of this, right? And you will see it's not a big bang approach. It's a progressive approach, and it's a journey. It's not a one-time thing that you do. And how do you measure success and continuous improvement, right? What we know is there's going to be new initiatives and new possibilities, and we're doing some AI project now. We know more and more credit union will embrace that change in the next 18, 24 months. So we know other things are coming. So how do we make sure that we will be able to embrace that change as it comes?
Oh no, if you just open the can of worms on AI, we'll spend the next 20 minutes talking about the theory of it. No, I'm just kidding. What is really important is, if you want to tackle that, this is not a sales pitch for it. This is just saying, if the AI is something that your leadership team has come back and said, we want that, well, you should push back and say, first, we need to establish the framework of governance, because otherwise you'll get that runaway crazy hypothesis of, oh, you should drink Gatorade if you're dying, and the other crazy things that AI has recommended to people that's been documented all over the internet. But what we did want to illustrate was some of the great points that Seb made are when you are creating this data governance strategy, you want to really focus in on three areas: the people, the process, and the technology. And if you can understand your gaps in those three areas, you can get very good visibility into some of these other pieces around who owns what parts of the data, who is responsible for security, are you even adhering to the right policies around security in the ever-changing landscape as you move to the cloud or AI or whatever it may be, as well as metadata management. So who is responsible for taking data from all these systems that you're using and making it easily accessible and understandable to the business, to stakeholders. So these are some really critical areas around data governance. And if you hit the next slide here, this is just another illustration on those different pillars that make up the data governance process that you need to build out around security, quality, strategy, and policies and stewardship. But the last slide that I have is one that I would recommend you screenshot and use this in a conversation when you're talking about data and somebody says they want to go tackle a new project. Say, great, let's look across these areas: strategy, people, process, technology. Where do you think we are in each one of them? And reach out after this call and I'll give you the one that has the movable box so that you can get on the phone with your CIO and say, okay, we are crawling on process, but we're running on technology. There's a little bit of a disconnect there. We want to be at the same spot. This is, just to make a shameless plug, an area that both Solutions Metrix and Arkatechture can come in and really provide just that arbitrator, that mediator, or even that shepherd to say, hey, if you are aware of the problems, we can help you get there. If you're not aware, let's ask some tough questions and have those conversations. So hopefully this has been illustrative for you on the impact around data governance on deploying a data warehouse and a CRM. It's incredibly important to build that foundation. We talked about it early, to make sure that you are investing in the right pieces and not running before you can crawl or walk in certain areas and over-indexing on spending money on technology before you even have the base. Because just like if you try to build a house on sand, eventually it'll shift and it'll fall. It's the same with data, and it's the same with the CRM. We can go back to the third slide, which was 70% of CRM projects fail to get the adoption that they wanted. A big driver of that is this data piece. And so that's how this all comes together and creates that opportunity for you to be a little bit more intentional in the way you structure your strategy around governance.
And very insightful. And this is also companies, service company, right? Like us and Arkatechture, where we exist to make sure you succeed in being matured and optimized, and so you can run the whole marathon. So we're not there to necessarily sell the technology. So we're there to make sure you can leverage the technology as well. So and we've seen it from the smaller credit union to the 10-15 billion dollar in assets under management. There's a change management that needs to come with this, but there's best practices that exist in order to make sure everyone's aligned, everyone is optimized, everyone knows the journey. And this is the true meaning of and the premises of the digital transformation that the industry goes through right now. Because we need to be at the marathon stage, but unfortunately, sometimes we crawl, walk, and run, but not run so fast. So how do we make sure we align the organization so we can be in a marathon in a short, medium period of time? So that's our goal. There's best practices and that framework that exists in order, depending on where you are, to bring you and bring the organization to the marathon stage. Thank you so much.
And Seb, we have a question that just got thrown in the chat, which perfect. I think would be a good one for you. So what's another example of a campaign that a credit union might run?
So an example will be, let's say you have an indirect member that only contracted an auto loan. And you want to convert them into a member. So you can have a promotion and a campaign to say, you're going to save a quarter of a point if you open a shared account, right? So that's a simple one that the templates are pre-built and you can execute on it. And like Tucson Credit Union, you'll get some ROI right away. So this is an example. And this is our, as a service company, we're partnering with multiple CRM platform, being Microsoft, Salesforce, another one called Creatio. We make that happen in the CRM and have the template. So that's a good example for credit union. Also have another one here. How long does it take to implement all of this? Great question.
Loaded question.
Exactly. So the typical timeline will be anywhere between, for our first phase. We're not saying we're going to be at marathon, on day one, but the first enablement of all of this is typically 3 to 6 months. Okay, so there's some strategy work that needs to be done ahead. We plan what the journey will look like. We engage, do some change management, and then we start on the tactical side to implement stuff. So typically between 3 to 6 months, you have something in place and you can start maturing toward being in the marathon stage.
Yeah, and I would agree with that timeline. Our implementations typically are about 4 to 6 months, and that's inclusive of about a 6-week strategy engagement. The driver for somebody being on the longer end of that implementation cycle is going to be inability to get to the data. Just means that we have to work as a partner and provide a little more of a white glove experience to figure out how do we go get that data. But we certainly can do that for you. And then the last question that I'm seeing is what types of systems would be most important to integrate into this? I can share first, Seb, from a data warehousing side of the house. Your core, obviously, that's the critical piece of the puzzle. And then after that, you start thinking about lending platforms. Your online banking is starting to become a really great use case for a lot of people to figure out how to better engage, who's looking at what, how are they accessing your platforms, as well as transactional data. And that's where you get the really rich insights of who do they engage with and where do they spend their time and money and how can you go meet them where they are. Seb, would you add anything to that?
Absolutely, maybe the card system, but 100% align with you. And when you have those data points, and you talk about the transactional data, so a question we get often is, do in CRM we bring all the transactional data, or for depending on the use cases, but typically we can bring the metadata of the transaction data, meaning we can do a summary and we can bring, let's say, the last 20 transaction plus kind of a summary of all the other transaction, what are the behavior as well. So that's also something we can do when we bring the data from core at the transaction level.
Absolutely. And the last question that I see is, I missed the first few minutes. Will you be sending this recording out? Will you be emailing it to us? The answer is yes. So we got your information and we're going to use it, right? So just like what we talked about earlier, hey, you gave us that information in exchange for some value. We're going to make sure that we serve that value to you. And that's what we want credit unions to be doing as well, is take advantage of all the data that you have at your fingertips, or maybe not at your fingertips, right? It's probably siloed, but make sure that you invest in the ways to be able to go and leverage that and have a conversation with somebody. So we'll certainly send this recording out. We'll make sure to follow up with you. And if you have any questions, you can always send us an email and all of our contact information will be shared out accordingly. Seb, any last thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining. Very passionate about this subject. And thank you, Tyler, for your excellent contribution to this. I think if we can help the community, it's great. So thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks all. Passionate about insights into action. Remember, take that one away from here. So I appreciate the time. Happy Tuesday. And if you have a holiday tomorrow, if you have off for Juneteenth, enjoy the holiday and take a little time to reflect on why Juneteenth is a holiday in the US. It's a really important day. Thanks everybody.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.